Alright, so we got this thing all put back together. I got rid of the mouse hotel with some compressed air, just brake cleaned some of the odds and ends, the tin and things like that, wiped everything down. I want to spray this throttle area good to get all kinds of gunk out of there, because all that has linkages and stuff in behind here that need to operate correctly, so they want to kind of keep that cleaned out. So we reconnected the throttle butterfly and the little spring that goes there, and then we put the choke back on, and we made sure that that worked, because that actually will close and stuff freely now. I took that apart and cleaned it out so that the shaft now will actually close itself. That's pretty important. So now you can see, as we take this throttle lever and put it up to full throttle, the full throttle opens all the way. This would be idle, so now this is wide open, and the governor will control that, so make sure you don't over rev the engine. And then as we go a little bit higher with my hand up here and hit the choke, you can see that the choke will actuate by getting pushed on there by that little tab. Pushes on it, closed, open. So when you're starting the engine, it's going to close. And when you get the engine to start, so we reattach that with our two 10mm screws here on the head. We plugged our fuel solenoid back in. That was easy. Pop that in. We put the carburetor back on, and this 90-degree air horn, the rubber PCV breather hose, just pushes in the back of it. And then of course the fuel line we push back on there. These clamps, I'm not sure if anybody's seen these type of clamps, but they're very easy. They're not the tightest clamps in the world, but they do work. You just pinch them and then let go. So sometimes if they're in a tough spot, they can be tough to get at to do that, but that is what has to happen. And you just kind of wiggle them off a little bit to get them off of there. So just a spring-loaded clamp that'll have them on, because they're the cheapest thing to possibly use on these type of engines. So we got a fresh juiced up battery jump started on here. Obviously, you know, do as I say and not as I do. You should have all shrouding and everything in place for safety's sake if you were going to test start this, but I did test start it for a minute just so that I didn't make a fool of myself. It does run. So if it doesn't run, you would immediately go to see if you had spark, which would be take the spark plug out and let it rest in the boot on a piece of metal so that it's grounded, and then have somebody crank the engine over. Do not touch the spark plug, because you will get zapped very hardcore, and see if there's spark at the tip of the spark plug. If there's not, then you know you have something else, a safety switch or some other type of more intricate issue electrically that's keeping you from getting spark. Unless, like I said, if a mouse chewed that coil, you could have the wire rubbing on metal. If this wire, if it's exposed in any way, and if it just has a little chunk taken out of it, sometimes you can get by with electrical tape or heat shrink or something. But as long as it's not touching metal, it should still conduct electricity. As soon as that touches metal, you're gonna lose spark. So that's the basics here. We did get the engine to run. It runs good. It surged a little bit because the air cleaner is actually going to affect that slightly, because the air cleaner, as a paper air cleaner, it gives us a little bit of restriction, so that kind of messes things up. It's almost like having your hand a little bit over this to change the speed and the intake of the engine. So we'll put all that shrouding back on, clean it up, and now that it runs, we'll move on to the next thing, which is making sure that it goes forward and backward and then cuts grass. So we'll be looking at the undercarriage here to see if all the belts are on, and get the blades and pulleys worked on, and go from there. So mission accomplished. This mower should be salvageable.